Good morning. We are on Hilchos Tisha B'Av, Erev Tisha B'Av, and Seudas Seket. So Daled. Sorry. Taf Kuf Nun Bet. Taf Kuf Nun Bet Daled. Mutar le'achol perot keshehem chayim afilu kama minim. So, right, we learned the halacha that you're limited to shnei tavshilin. We're going to relearn that again a little bit. So you're not allowed to have two tavshilin on Erev Tisha B'Av at the Seudas Seket. But you are allowed to have as many as you want of foods that are not cooked. And dafka means cooked. Baked cakes and stuff like that, bread, that's not an issue. Things that are pasteurized, the poskim says, that's not called cooked. For another example is salted, pickled. That's not called cooked. And herring, things like that, not an issue. So those you can have as many as you want. We'll get into a few more examples shortly.
At the Seudas Seket, that is.
At the Seudas Seket we're talking about. Yeah, that's when there's an issue of having two tavshilin. So let's read a little more and we'll give some more examples. Hey, nohagim. One second. Yeah. Nohagim lechol adashim im beitzim mevushalim betocham. The custom is to dafka eat lentils with eggs and that are cooked together. Shehem machal avelim, because that's a machal, a food of avelim. Right? We all know that eggs. Everyone knows about eggs and lentils. And here you see, according to our version of the Shulchan Aruch, you eat them together. Happens to be, some versions have it where it's separate. Okay. Haga, that's the Mishnah Berurah according to the Tur. Now, Hagav, yesh nohagim le'achol beitzim kashim. Some have hard-boiled eggs. Shehu gam kein ma'achal avelim, which is also a food of avelim. Okay. Fine. You know what? Let's just review a few items. Are they considered one or are they considered two? So, if you read the words, this is really from today and the previous day, and I'm not sure if we're going to say it again today, but from Seif Gimel, if it's foods that are normally eaten together, that's the way the dish is normally served. So that's the way it simply reads in the Tur, in the Shulchan Aruch, many poskim. That's how it's brought by, let's see, the Orach Chaim. The Orach Chaim points out it's just whatever is normal. If that's the way that food is normally eaten, and then that's called one tavshil. Chazon Ovadia, it seems to be from Orach Chaim, Piskei Teshuvos. As long as it's the normal way, then that's called one tavshil. In other words, chulent would be one tavshil. If it's normal to cook, Chinese rice with eggs, so that would be one tavshil. If it would be eggs with potatoes, eggs with potato or fish. The Aruch Shulchan has an example of fish with potatoes. So that would be. He says if that's the normal way for that family to cook, then that would be called one tavshil. So same too with any stew or anything. If that's the normal way to have it, majadra, rice with lentils, if that's the normal way to do it, that would be one tavshil. Okay, however, and then also if you would have, let's say, pasta with cheese inside. So many poskim in the Orach Shulchan is very clear. That's called one tavshil. However, I'll leave this a little bit up in the air for Ashkenazim, but as far as the Mishnah Berurah basically follows the Magen Avraham and points out that sometimes it's a little bit unclear, but they use the wording that has to be the way the food is usually eaten. I don't know exactly how to explain it, and Aruch Shulchan obviously doesn't agree with it. And so the Mishnah Berurah says if you have, let's say, pasta with with cheese. You make, I don't know, baked ziti, pasta, lasagna. Seems to be from the Mishnah Berurah, it would be a problem. That would be considered 2 tavshilin. Piskei Teshuvos, he has another modern posek, I don't remember, who sides with the Aruch Shulchan. So, anyways, there'll be, I guess, perhaps some different opinions on it. Some say it depends. The Mishnah Berurah or the Magen Avraham must be talking, they never ate cheese with pasta together. They didn't have lasagna. I don't know. So I don't know. But they are, well, I don't know. I'll leave that as a little bit of a suffix with the Mishnah Berurah and who follows that and how to apply it. Sushi. What's sushi? Well, if the rice is cooked, so that would be 1 tafshil, right? But the raw sushi is for sure not a problem. We said salted herring, that's for sure. If you have boiled eggs and scrambled eggs, so that would be 2 tafshilin though, because it's cooked separately in 2 different ways. Let's see, anything else you want to mention? Cooked silan, I saw that as an example. That's basically date syrup since it's cooked. So now it's no longer, it's cooked, so that's considered 1 tafshil. I think all the poskim say tea, coffee, hot milk. That's not a problem because it's not a tafshil. You're not cooking it, it's just a drink. Or some want to say iroi, different reasons. But everyone seems to say that's okay. Okay, fine.
The bare haytins of cotton haze.
Okay, many cheeses. Right, I was going to mention that. Many cheeses and butters, that's not called tafshilin. That's basically considered raw, and you can have as much different cheeses as you like. Yeah, and they also point out to poskim, if you just melt your cheese, you're going to make pita or pasta. You just want to melt some cheese on it, so they all right, it's okay. That's not even called a tafshil. Because the bread is bread, so if it's pizza. So the bread is bread. Bread's not called a tafshil. It's a baked item. And the cheese is just a little cheese melted on top. It's basically called just not, so that there's no tafshil there. If it be pasta, then the pasta itself is one tafshil. Okay, sorry for that digression there. Now, vav. Mish efshar lo yochal besuda mafseket ela pat chareva b'melach v'kiton shel mayim. So one who is able to should only have for the Seudah Mafseket should be like, this is from the Gemara in Tainis, we learned from Rabbi Yehuda Bar Ilai, that one should only have plain bread and plain water, nothing else. So lechatchila, no one should have anything but bread and water, not even 1 tafshil. The Rambam also quotes that and says, "B'yameinu, we never had anything but bread and water." Okay, and they also quote Mishnah Berurah and others quote the Yerushalmi b'Shem Rav, the custom of dipping the bread in ashes. Rabbi Yehuda ben Elai would sit by the tanur and on the floor, and by Rav he would also dip the bread in ashes and say that this verbally say this Seudah is Seudas of Erev Tisha B'Av. So okay, minhagim for Chasidim. Okay, v'haga v'yesh nohagim le'achol beitzim kashim shehu gam kein machal avelim. Now Lamaisa, he says our custom, which I think most people do, is just to have bread, water, and a hard-boiled egg. Okay, again that's minhag, and one is allowed to do it what he likes. Can switch off between different types of eggs from year to year. Vav, or lentils. Vav, mi she'ef sharlo, one who can. La yochal I read this already. Zayin. Sorry. 1 second.
Zayin.
I'm going back and forth. I'm in the middle of Vav. The Haga v'yesh machmirim l'tabel achar achilatan pat ba'efer u'la'ochlo. And so here the Ramah says the minhag of dipping. So we learned to source, dipping it in afer and ash. Al shem v'yagreis b'chatzatz.
After eating.
Okay. After eating. But it's during the Seudas Mafseket. Zayin. That's his dessert. Zayin. Nagu leishev al gabe karka b'seuda hamafseket. So the minhag is we sit on the floor and we eat the Seudas Mafseket. Ve'ein sarich lachlotz min alav. And you don't have to take off your shoes. You're allowed to still wear leather shoes because Tisha B'Av didn't start All the 5 things that we don't do is only starting when Tisha B'Av starts. Basically after Shkia or Bein Hashmashos. That's when we start. And the Seudah Mafseket is Erev. So you're allowed to, okay.
The Mishnah says you're allowed to sit on a chair after.
Yes, you're allowed to sit on a chair afterwards because none of the 5 things begin, and even sitting on the floor, which is in addition to the 5, none of the halachas of Avela start until Tisha B'Av itself. Just the Seudas HaMafseket has this added thing of sitting on the floor. Let's see. Chet. Yeshu zar shelo yeshvu shlosha le'achol b'seudah mafseket. The custom is we do not have you don't have 3 men sitting together or 3 people sitting together. Why? Kedei shelo yitchayvu b'zimun, because we don't want to be mechuyev in a zimun. Ela kol echad yeshev levado v'yivarech la'atzmo, because it's a sign of mourning and it's sad, and we don't want to do a zimun together, and so everyone makes his own benching. Now, if men do sit together and they sit down together, they eat together, b'diavad, do they do a zimun? So there are two opinions. Mishnah Berurah follows you do not do a zimun, even if they ate together, and Chazon Ovadia says no, you do a zimun. Okay. Tet. Kol zeh b'seudah mafseket. What we learned until now about you're only allowed to have 1 tafshil maximum is regarding the seudah hamafseket. Whatever you designate as your last meal after chatzot. Okay? She'ein daitu lechol od achareya seudat keva. You're not planning to have another meal of seudat keva, of sitting down and having a kvios of a seudah. Okay? I don't know, Piskei Tshuva says you don't have to have bread, but the minhag is to have bread and we should have bread, but he says technically, maybe it doesn't have to be. Okay, I don't know. Okay, Shehu Achar Chatzos, after Chatzos, that's when the Seudas HaMafseket is. By definition, that's when the only time you have that limitation of 1 tafshil. But if you're only going to eat in the morning, or Achar Chatzos v'daitu le'achol achar yaseh keva, or you're going to eat in the after Chatzos, and you're going to have and you're planning to eat another meal, right? We're going to learn that that's what many people do. We'll see that in the Ramah, that they have 2 meals in the afternoon. So since you're planning to have 2 meals in the afternoon, and the second one as a sit-down kavua meal with a piece of bread, so then the first meal you have in the afternoon, you can eat as many dishes as you want. You don't have to worry about all these restrictions. Haga, uminag bechol glilos Ashkenaz, and this is the general minhag in the world. Le'achol seuda kavua kodem mincha, that right before mincha in the afternoon, everyone eats a big meal with whatever they want. V'achar kach mitpali mincha, and then afterwards you daven mincha. Not right before Shkia, but sometime early in the afternoon, and then you go back home, v'ochlin seudah mafseket, and then you have what you designate as seudah mafseket. V'noagin laharva k'tzad b'ser rishona, so you eat lots at the first meal, k'dei shelo yazik lehem atayinit, so you're able to deal well in the tayinit and not get sick, or too weak. Hoyel uposkim b'od yom kamo b'yom kippur. V'yesh k'tzad, and then because you're stopping early in the afternoon, I don't know, in other words, way before Shkia. And he has a source, or it's alluded to based in the Midrash. Mihu, Misha Yuchal, but what's even better? Misha Yuchal is Sagef Atzmo, V'yadeh B'yatzmo, She'ena Tanit Maziklo, V'machmir Al Atzmo, who's ever able to, and he knows he's going to be able to fast and not pass out, he should be Machmir and Nikra Kadosh, and be called a Kadosh Ken Nir Eli. So I see, which means in the afternoon, when we already learned, you should have nothing but 1 meal, not 2, 1 meal of bread and water. So there are quite a few achronim that, including the Mishnah Berurah brings them, that they're not so happy with the concept of having a big meal, let's say 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then by the time you get to your Seudah Mafseket, you're full. and you're basically forcing yourself. It may or may not be a technical achilas gasa that you don't even say a bracha on it, but you're basically just having a quick meal just to have the technically. He calls it as it's this meal. If you do it like this, it's if you fill up at the first meal. Now you're just having a piece of bread to fulfill it. It's really, you're not really having a proper Seudat Mafseket. You're having what's called a zichron, a zecher, of what the rabbis used to have a Seudat Mafseket, and instead you indulge yourself in having a big meal beforehand. So anyways, the minhag is the minhag, but better not to overfill yourself in the first meal. And obviously we don't indulge ourselves in what we eat with good foods. Okay. I think that's that. Okay. The Mishnah Berurah points out, if you're going to have a second meal, if you're going to eat 2 meals, make sure you need to have bread at the second meal, or at least what's called achilas keva. Because if you just have a snack for your second meal, let's say your second meal you just want to have a piece of an egg. He said, I'm going to have a big meal at 1 o'clock, and then later on in the afternoon, without bread or a Seudas keva, whatever that is, I'm just going to have a little piece of an egg. So he says, really what you just did was, the real meal, your Seudas keva with bread, was at 1 o'clock. And then that, by definition, that is your Seudat Mafseket. Because even you are allowed to have a snack after your Seudat Mafseket. And so then that meal that you ate, you had more than 2 tafshilin, or more than 1 tafshil. So you ended up eating really inappropriately. Okay. Yod. Im chal Tisha b'Av be'echad b'Shabbos, if Tisha B'Av is on Sunday, or shechal b'Shabbat v'nidche la'achar HaShabbos, or it fell out on Shabbos and it became a nidche. In other words, l'maisa Tisha B'Av is on Sunday, Saturday night. So he says here, ochel basar v'shota yain b'Seudat Mafseket. So in your Seudat Mafseket, or Shalashidus, the third meal, so then you eat like normal. You eat meat, you eat wine, and okay. Many of us just have salatim, or fish. But anyways, the point is, the Seudat Mafseket, your last meal, you eat whatever you want, and you treat it like regular Shabbos. Otherwise, it looks like you're sitting in Avelis in Shabbos afternoon. And you even eat like a Seudas of Shlomo HaMelech with all the wonderful foods. Okay. But you just got to make sure you finish before Shkia. Now there are different couple of minhagim l'maisa what to do on a Shalashidus. So the Magen Avraham points out, the Mishnah Berurah b'Shem Magen Avraham, you should eat a really a more simple meal. You are allowed to have basar v'yayin, because otherwise you're showing avelis, but you eat by yourself, you keep it simple. You can eat with your family, but you don't get together with all your friends or make a big shalashidus and shul. That's the minhag of the Magen Avraham. But the Mishnah Berurah also points to Bechor Shor. It's also in Birkei Yosef, and according to Igros Moshe and Piskei Teshuvos, that this is the minhag is, we basically treat it like we always do. If you want to sing Zmiros with your friends and shul, that's the general minhag, and that's matar lechatchila. Okay. All right. Mishnah Berurah points out, if you're going to have a bris milah, then you should do it earlier, so you have your big Suda earlier in the day. It could be in the afternoon, but just before mincha. That's his recommendation. Okay, Yud Aleph. Mi shekiba alav tainis sheni v'chamishi kol yomot hashana ve'era erev Tisha b'Av liyot b'sheni. So what happens if a person makes himself basically a neder? I'm going to fast every Monday and Thursday. And that turns out to be, or sometimes people make a neder by a yurtzeit or whatever it is, and it comes out, or tainis chalom, it comes out that this day of fasting is Erev Tisha B'Av. So it's going to be too hard to fast 2 days in a row. So there are 2 opinions here. The Shulchan Aruch says, well, everyone says Yisha'el al Nidro. The best thing everyone says is you should just go to a Rav or a Beis Din, 3 people, and you're mashal on your neder, so you'll undo it. And this way, you're allowed to eat. That's what everyone says is the best thing to do and avoid certain issues. Okay? or also if a person's going to take upon a neder, or for yurtzeit, whatever, it's always better to say, the Mishnah Berurah comments it, others, you should always say it's, but I'm not accepting the neder past chatzot, or at least I have in mind, not when it comes out to be a problem with other double fast days like this. So then the Shulchan Aruch says, if you don't undo your neder, so you have to eat, because it's going to be too difficult, so you do eat, but oyilve ta'anito uforeya. But so you're going to break your fast, and you're going to have to make up your tainus on a different day. However, the Ramah says, and that's the minhag certainly for Ashkenazim, it's based on the Gaonim. Hagav ve'agaonim katvu demitane ad achar tfilas mincha. In this situation, fast until mincha, and then ve'ochel suda mafseket kodem biyata shemesh, and then you eat before shkia. But Mishnah Berurah points out, though, according to this Gaonim, if you're not undoing the neder, you can't have 2 meals, because you can only have 1 meal, and then you're limited to 1 tafshil. Okay. Let's see. Fine, Yud Bet. Ein omrim techina I skipped? Sorry. Okay, so I skipped the Ramah. The Ramah says v'chein noagin, so whatever he just said, he stands by it. V'hu hadin mishemit ane tanit chalom, and he added tanit chalom. Shkoyach. Okay. Yud Bet. Ein omrim techina erev Tisha b'av b'mincha, mishum de'ikri moed. Now, on every Erev Tisha b'av in the afternoon, we already don't say tachanan, mishum de'ikri moed, because Tisha b'av is called a holiday. It's a moed, and it one day will be a happy holiday. So therefore, we already start on Erev Tisha b'av. We never say tachana, and so we don't say tzidkatcha if it comes out. That's in the Ramah. Im hu Shabbos, if it's Shabbos, so ein omrim tzidkatcha, right? Shabbos mincha. And Mishnah Berurah points out the minhag is we do say Orach Chaim that morning, and we do say. We mentioned for the neshamas, so it's either the nesach of kel mali rachamim, or for Sfarim they call it hashkava. And regarding ketanim, just one quick thought. So we know that all these halachos of avelos of what we're doing applies to the parents and the adults, but halachos of avelos generally does not apply to ketanim, like for hilchos avelos for krovim. And so there are different opinions. But generally, most hold that a lot of the halachos that we're learning, so we don't give them a haircut, we don't wash their clothing, but they themselves really don't have any halachos that they have to necessarily keep. There'll be different opinions as far as mitzad chinuch, what's appropriate to teach. Mi'am Lois, Piskei Teshuvos points out, recommends starting from age 9 or 10. But anyways, there are different opinions. Some say you don't even have to do anything. We know that they don't fast at all. Ketanim. But anyways, just one little thing here. I just want to point out a couple differences or similarities, and we'll stop with this, between Seudat HaMafseket and Seudas Havraah. So Seudas Havraah is that first meal. I'm not going to get into all the details, but the first meal that one comes home to eat after they bury one of their Zayin Krovim. So the Seudas Havraah, so some similarities between them. So they both have a concept of it's a meal of avelos, right? And for both the meals we sit on the floor, and both of them we try not to make a zimun. So you don't have to sit alone, but you don't try and make a zimun for that first meal. However, there are several differences, just to point out. One of them being tafshil echad or many. Seudas Havraah, you can eat as many dishes as you want. By Seudas HaMafseket, you're only allowed 1 tafshil maximum. Another difference is basar v'yayin. Okay, you have meat and wine, so an avel is allowed to, even at the Seudas Havraah. But, I mean, he's not supposed to get drunk, but he's allowed to have a glass or 2, that's not a problem. But for Seudas HaMafseket, we know we don't have any meat and wine. Let's see, another difference is Seudas HaMafseket, you can make it yourself, cook it yourself, buy it yourself, prepare it yourself. Seudas Havraah is from shchenim, from your neighbors. Another one is taking off your shoes. So we just read clearly, right now, at Erev Tisha B'Av, there's no minhagei of Avelis, except sitting on the floor and eating the meal, the way we do. But when you're an Avel, you have to keep everything. So having leather shoes on is one. And another one, we learned here by Seudas HaMafseket, there's a minhag to have it with ashes. I'm not familiar with any such minhag by Avelis and Seudas Havraah. So, all right. Good day.